A few months ago, I found out about a book, and I thought, wow, that's a really interesting concept. I need to get that book. But the problem was the book was actually written in 1978, and even going on Amazon, it took a few weeks before I could actually get lucky enough and track down a copy. The book is called The 100. It is by Michael H. Hart. He's a historian, and what he did in the 1970s was, this is fascinating when you think about it, he decided that he was going to look back at the entire history of the world and come up with the 100 most influential people who have ever walked on the face of the earth, and then he was going to rank them. Who's number 1, who's number 2, who was number 99, who was number 100. Here's my question for you. Think about history. Who do you think is the most influential person who has ever lived? Come on, just take a wild guess. Who do you think it is? Nah, it's not Jesus. Not according to Mr. Hart. Mr. Hart actually puts Muhammad as number 1, and he puts Isaac Newton as number 2. Jesus is 3rd. Now, I know a lot of people are going to hear that and going to go, oh, he's just a liberal professor who doesn't like Jesus, and he's just... When you read the chapter that Mr. Hart writes on Jesus, it becomes very clear that this guy is a fan. He acknowledges the vast impact that Jesus, the man, has on the history of the world. Before Jesus enters into the picture, what you have is a situation where might is right. Who you are is all dependent on the family you were born into. So if you were in a royal family or on the pathway of becoming a king, the assumption was that God loved you. And if you were a peasant, not so much. And then Jesus entered into the picture, and all that changed because he started to preach that the least of these matter to God. Before he said that, no one even dared to speak it. And so Mr. Hart goes into the Sermon on the Mount and breaks it down and talks about how Jesus' impact was introducing an ethics and a morality that never existed before he came into the scene. So he acknowledges this guy is hugely important, that he changes everything, but he can't be number 1. You know why Jesus is not number 1? Because as Mr. Hart explains on page 50, Jesus' words are not widely followed. And if they were widely followed, then Jesus would be number 1. Let me break that down for you. What he is saying is you cannot have Jesus be the most influential person if the people who are his followers aren't really influenced by what the guy said. So Jesus is number 3 because you and me and the church today has spent a lot of time and a lot of energy building our little Christian community, little Christian bubble. We have this little bubble that we dare not step outside of. We like our little bubble, and we want to keep our children protected in our little bubble. We make sure our children have nothing but Christian friends, and they go to nothing but Christian schools, and they listen to nothing but K-Love radio, and they watch nothing but Kirk Cameron movies, never stepping outside the bubble. And Jesus is 3rd. Jesus is 3rd because the world knows exactly what Christians are against, but it's kind of unclear on what we're for. So Jesus is 3rd. Jesus is 3rd because our love comes with a condition. It's predicated on converting people. You want to be my friend? You want to be part of my life? You want my love? Well, you better think the way I think. You better believe the way I believe. You better say this prayer with me. You better repeat after me. And if you're unwilling to do it, then I can't have you in my bubble. I'm sorry. I got to move on. And Jesus is 3rd. Jesus is 3rd because we have churches that are far more interested on spreading, on growth than spreading the gospel. We have churches that are far more interested on teaching about the gifts of the Spirit as opposed to the fruit of the Spirit. Churches that want to tell you exactly who you should vote for, and churches who are constantly reminding you that you need to sow a seed by investing some money into our congregation. And Jesus is 3rd. Jesus is 3rd because this generation of believers on our watch has allowed the faith to turn into what's in it for me, as opposed to how can I help out others. And Jesus is 3rd, and perhaps he's fallen quickly. When I started doing videos, I sat down and wrote out a mission statement, basically a mission statement. It was based off of 3 points. I'm going to give you one of those points right now. It was the second point, and it's this. We need to show a mirror and hold up a mirror to the faith so we can see exactly who we are, the reality of who we are today, because only in seeing the reality can we better prepare ourselves to be the reflection of what it is we hope to be. Here's what the mirror says to me on this issue, and this is going to offend some of you, but it's true. We have erred too much on who Jesus is and have paid little attention on what he has said. We have erred, and this is going to sound strange, but hear me out. We have erred on the side of the cross. Now, obviously, the cross means everything to me. For me, the cross is that place where my failings and shortcomings and flaws are made up for, where Jesus' sacrifice covers all my shortcomings, and because he covers them, I get to have a one-on-one relationship with God. The cross is huge, but you're not supposed to set up camp at the cross, and I think that's what a lot of Christians are doing. We just sit there in our little bubble and we set up camp and we just soak in God's love, and we think, oh, this is great, and if we get enough of God's love, maybe some of it will splash off of us and onto the people around us. I don't mean to be political about this, but trickle-down Christianity will not work. You need the faith in our faith that allows you to leave the cross and take that love and then go on and spread it in some dark places. That's the whole point of why we're here. We're supposed to leave the cross and go out into the world. And so the cross to me is really kind of like a gas station or a filling station, the place we run to soak up in God's love, to get the needle back on F so we can leave and spend it in other places where people are going to tap into us, where people are going to deplete our energy and our strength. And just as we get down to maybe a quarter or maybe a little bit lower, we run back to the cross, have that morning, have our quiet time, get it back to F, and then go out and spend it into the world again. Paul talks about running a race. I don't think it's a distance race. I think it's a constant race back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. You cannot set up camp at the cross. And until, as a church, we elevate what Jesus said and put it on the same level as who he was, until we do that, Jesus is third. Coming up next week, we're going to talk about how to share the gospel, and we're going to do it through a guy who understands something that is so critical on what we're talking about. You can share the gospel without ever opening up the Bible. All you need to do is open up your heart, or perhaps open up your doors. We're going to introduce you to a man who's figured out that you can simply share the gospel by investing some time with people, and in this case, teaching them karate.
Well, you're building bridges to people, and that's what I try to do with people. I try to build a bridge to them, and as you build a bridge, you're getting closer to them, but you're also bringing the Lord closer to them.
We call that story The Gospel with the Kick, and that is next week. I hope you will do me a personal favor and share this video with your friends on Facebook, and that you will like our page and like our efforts and help other people find out about it. I'm Doug Wahl in North Carolina. God bless.